Everybody. On behalf of Women Onside, I would like to welcome you all today. My name's Julie Ryan and I'm the coaching convener for Women Onside. Very excited to be able to host today's coaching webinar. I'm sure it's been a challenging time for everybody over the last few months, and I hope that wherever you are, you and your families and friends are all safe and well and enjoying some of the new freedoms that the lockdown rules allow us to get out about a bit. I'd like to make a special welcome to our special guest, Joey Peters, who's coming to us from Newcastle in northern New South Wales, as well as Matthew O'Neill, who'll be joining our discussion panel. On behalf of all the players and parents that are out there at the moment waiting to get back on the pitch, I just wanted to say a huge thank you to you all for taking the time to join us. It's great to see the ongoing commitment from coaches and the wider football community in continuing to learn and grow about our wonderful game. We had over 100 people registered for today's event. They're still filing in as we speak today. And we have a vast amount of coaching experience in the audience based on that. I did some quick maths on it and we had more than 600 years experience at a conservative level of people that are involved with the game. And more than 60% of those that registered have had 5 years experience in the game. So it's great commitment and we thank you for coming today to share your insights and ideas. Before jumping in Joey's presentation, I wanted to take a moment to quickly introduce Women Onside. Women Onside is an Australia-wide network. We're dedicated to making football a place where women can thrive. We formed in 2017 to promote gender equality and specifically to ensure that FIFA's gender reforms would be adopted in the FFA Constitution in Australia. We were successful with that, and as a result, the 40-40-20 principle was adopted. A Women's Council was formed. The FFA board now has a 50-50 gender split as well, so some good successes there. Women Onside comprises a diverse network of women in football and their allies, with interest groups convened in areas including coaching, refereeing, governance, supporter groups, with more to come. We're continuing to collaborate with FFA, the Women's Council, all of our member federations, FCA, and as many other groups as we can to help develop our beautiful game. A little bit of housekeeping about today's presentation so that we can all enjoy it. Women Onside are recording this. All participants with their camera enabled on your device, be it your phone or tablet, will be visible to other participants, hosts, and our guest speakers. If you don't wish to be visible, please disable or mute the video using the mute button down on the left-hand side. So the video mute button, that's on the left-hand side of your screen. We would ask that you please don't make any personal recordings of this presentation. We actively support equality and inclusion, and whilst we're encouraging huge amount of participation in today's webinar, we just want to make sure that everybody acts respectfully and appropriately throughout the event. We hope to be taking questions via the chat facility today. To do this, the chat facility is found again in the bottom in the middle of your Zoom screen. If you click on that, it opens another window and you can send messages to the group. Please send them to everybody if you want me to ask the questions. When we get a chance for you to speak to Joey, we'll unmute the microphone from this end. If you can keep your introduction short and get to the questions just so that everybody has a turn. If you're a little bit camera shy and prefer not to speak to Joey, just in case you get a bit nervous because she's really, you know, that tough to talk to, you can type host at the end of your question and I'll be able to ask the question on your behalf. Just before I was going to explain the format today so that we understand what's going on, Joey's going to be the main presenter and she'll run through her slides. She's really keen to engage with you actually as the audience during the presentation, and we'll be happy to take related questions at the end of each slide. Matt O'Neill and myself will also be part of an informal Q&A panel, answer questions and add comments potentially at the end of each slide as well. At the end of the presentation, we'll move to a full Q&A with whatever time we have left and go from there. So without further ado, I'd like to introduce today's special guest. Joey Peters is a Matildas legend. She's been capped 110 times. She attended 3 FIFA World Cups, 99, 2003 and 2007. She's a 2004 Olympian in Athens. She's an Asian Cup finalist and played in professional leagues in the USA, Brazil and Sweden. She was the winner of the Julie Dolan medal in the 2002-2003 season of the Women's National League, which is a precursor to W League. And she was inducted into the FFA Hall of Fame in 2010. She's also a mum to a large number of children, also a football analyst. And after retiring from playing professional football in 2009, she continued her passion for the game in the coaching space and attained all of her licenses ranging from C to A in Asia. She's also now developed her own coaching methodology, Gameplay Learn, where they focus is on hiding learning in fun. It provides dynamic, motivating learning environments aimed at inspiring and nurturing individual players. Add to this impeccable resume her recent appointment to the FFA starting 11 advisory panel, and this rounds out an incredible contribution to football. So we'd like to welcome Joey. Thank you. And also with us, Matt O'Neill. Matt comes to us tonight, or today actually, not nighttime, with a different perspective using play as a mainstay coaching philosophy. He has experience in multiple sports. He's a Taekwondo expert. He's represented an athlete at state, national and international events. He's also the head instructor at Central Coast Martial Arts, founder of a Kids in Sports program at the Batto Bay Police Citizens Youth Club. He also has a very broad football pedigree. He was the inaugural head coach and conditioning specialist at International Football School. He was the strength and conditioning coach for the Philippine under-23 national men's team. With that, did a lot of aid work, which is the photo that you saw before, in some of the poorer regions of the Philippines. He's proud to have a history working with some of the big names in women's football, including former Matilda Julie Dolan and Matilda's former coach Hestorine de Royce. On any given week, Matt engages with hundreds of kids in various sporting contexts and is in a unique position to share insights into the benefit of play. He's also a facilitator with Joey's organisation of Gameplay Learn. Thank you, Matt, for joining us today.
My pleasure.
And then just a little bit about me, for those that don't know much about me. I've been coaching in New South Wales and Victoria for over 20 years. I have a degree in coaching from Deakin Uni in 2005. I have a 5-year history of a goalkeeper coach with the NTC program and the Women's National League squads. 7+ years with Victorian Women's Premier League side as a goalkeeper coach as well. And now in the last 10 years, I've been a community coach, educator, the CCC program mentor, and also I'm a facilitator with the Soccer Mums currently as well. And I work with various community clubs on goalkeeper and coaching development programs. So with that, I'm just going to hand over to Joey and run us through her presentation. And Joey, make sure you remind Cheryl when you want to change slides.
No worries. Thanks so much, Julie. Thank you to Women Onside for hosting today. Thank you to everyone for joining us on your Saturday morning. It's an interesting time, isn't it, as we go into June, and that I know in Australia anyway that we're reducing the lockdown measures. So I feel like if I could talk to you guys about anything that's most important to me, and it really is this sense of letting them play. And I'm really happy to introduce to you Gameplay Learn as well, and go into that. That's been my little baby for the last 7 years of research and developing and experimenting with a clean slate of what coaching might mean. Apologies if there's lots of noise in the background. I do have a big family going on, so just give me a hoy if it's too loud, won't you? But yeah, let's kick it off. I did want to give you a bit of an insight into my journey first up, my life journey really, just so that you get a bit of a sense of where I'm coming to and where I've come to today to be valuing this dynamic of play. Yeah, so today we've got obviously Matt, Julie, and I'm hoping from you guys as well. As we look at the learning journey, can we be nurturing some light bulb moments here today? So if there's anything perhaps new or might be old that you've thought of that perhaps you did as a kid in terms of play, and you can relate to that in terms of fun, in your own life journey, that'd be awesome. Hopefully there's some new things there to inspire you. And I love that little picture of the light bulb with the little plant inside it, because I love this term nurturing, and for me it's Gameplay Learn and play is really coming back to the basics coming back to what matters in life. I feel like, especially in sport, we can get caught up in, you know, whether it's commercial side of things, or we often talk about, you know, the production line of talent.
She's going to be talking about the importance of just letting kids play.
Heather, we're going to put you on mute, mate.
Pressure. Sorry.
You're right. So, yeah, this sense of, I love it, guys. It's all good. Yeah, the production line of talent, moving into this industrial revolution that we did back in the day, you know, it really made us a lot more mechanical in how we see things. You know, we're looking for the end product in things. And so I want you to keep that in mind of, you know, where we've come to as a society when we reflect on this word play. And already I want you to be thinking about, what does let them play mean to you? And what does the word play mean to you? Perhaps it's just, we'll let them play. And I love the analogy of the school classroom and the playground. We'll do our learning in the classroom, but off you go and play to have a bit of reprieve in the playground. Well, for me, actually, there's so much gold in the playground that we're perhaps missing and not valuing, that I would dare say is even more important than the classroom, dare I say. So anyway, if I just take you a little bit of a quick journey through my life, and a start on the left there with backyard games, multi-sport, a country town as a kid. So I grew up until the age of 12, experienced a lot of different sports, and it's interesting when they do research on, you know, players that have become professional, what are their backgrounds, and multi-sport is becoming more of a theme. There's also that sense of a country town where it's more of a community-based, oh, we need another player for our basketball team. Oh yeah, I'll join in. So, you know, I was playing basketball, athletics, cricket, of course, our wonderful game, soccer, softball, squash. I think I counted 7 sports in one year I was doing, and it was just, there's nothing else to do in a country town. So how awesome. Backyard games as well was a huge influence on me, playing in the backyard with my brother, who was 3 years older than me. And I think right from there, for some reason, and whether it was with my family as well, being particularly focused on being high achievers, I took into this mentality of, I want to win. Everything I did, I wanted to win. No matter if my brother was 3 years older than me and a big boy, it didn't matter. I wanted to win, and I wanted to be the best. Not being the best in terms of, I want to be the best that I can be, which is kind of a nice term that happens these days. I wanted to be the best. So from a young kid, this was where I've come from. And then obviously you might know me from my days in the Matildas. So for me to describe that would be, I was straight into the performance context. I was performance orientated, which meant I wanted to win. I wanted to be the best. It meant specialising as well. I had no time. We moved to the city then, and in Sydney, and I went straight into training 3 to 4 times a week out at Park Lee. And, you know, didn't have time for other sports. I tried to play a bit more cricket, but just didn't have time for it. So I was specialising in that one sport. And then obviously being a professional player, again, that sense of I wanted to win and be the best. And after 13 years, I retired, and after reflecting, you know, I was sad to kind of be somewhat forced to retire in my injuries, just the ongoing long-term injuries, which I think is important to talk about, that, you know, how much we accept injuries in our game. And again, this aspect of play is all about, you know, the more that we can play, I feel like the less, and there is actually some research saying the more that kids can play, the less prone they'll be to long-term overuse injuries that we get from specialising in something. So that's an interesting point if you wanted to take note of that. Also, then, yeah, from retiring from the Matildas, moved on to being, again, still in that performance context, as a coach. Had a stint with the Jets as assistant coach. I player coached in the local Women's Premier League here in Newcastle for a few years. I obviously went through that formal education. And, you know, I felt like that's a good introduction, the formal education. But overall, it was I put solo there. It was a very isolating time as a coach, being introduced to professional coaching. And it's interesting now that I think it's about nearly 11 years since I retired from the Matildas. So I was 13 years with the Matildas. It's just about the same time now I've spent out of the Matildas as I was in it. And it's taken me a long time to separate myself as a Matilda and move into then perhaps a new identity or another part of life rather than being just totally wrapped up in this performance context. And so there, it's interesting. I can't even see off the mat because I wanted to put the arrows straight down. It was like a horrible time. Well, it wasn't a horrible time. Well, it was at the time, but it was necessary for me. I went through burnout, mental illness and fatigue. It got to the point in that isolated time for me that I just couldn't continue. The stress was too much. I was still, you know, since there was a lot around my identity and who I was as a Matilda, but also, you know, breaking a lot from religion and even the sense around sexuality was big for me. And I really plummeted. I spent a year or so out of life, really. I went and hid somewhere up in the North Coast for a while, but that was really important. Because then I came back with a clean slate. I managed to go to a football school, which I met Maddie O'Neill at, and it was a clean slate because there was this experiment of, you know, we had these kids that we could work with every day. They wanted to say that we wanted to put on sessions every day that we could explore, you know, kids' potential. And that was a wonderful place to collaborate with other coaches like Maddie. We had people from overseas, Patrick Spijnswijk from Holland, Andre Gumprecht, I call him the German genius. There was a few A-League players, Bradley Porter, just a wonderful collaboration where we were just like, hang on, what could we do? Okay, we wanted to obviously have the national curriculum also as a framework, but, you know, we had these kids every day. What are we going to do? So we started researching, and not just researching football in Australia, but football around the world, not just football, but sport, not just sport, but learning. And so you can see this real informal learning came about. And for me, that's where Gameplay Learn was born. And so it's for the last, 7 years, but more so 5 years when I thought, you know what, I'm going to make this a formal philosophy now that I want to develop called Gameplay Learn. And that's where now you see I'm very much family first, and I'm very much moved from performance aims to participation needs. And for me, it's not one or the other, but I feel like there's something that we're missing if we don't put participation needs first. If we can put participation needs first, and by participation, it means like when you participate in something, what is your experience? You know, what is it around that experience? It's not the end product of winning or whatever. It's everything in that, the enjoyment of it, the social aspects of it. From that, if we have a great experience, and for me, that is wrapped up in play. And Gameplay Learn, the heart of Gameplay Learn is play. It's let them play. So, yeah, that's an overview of my journey. I don't know if you guys want to comment on any of that or find out more, you know, jot down for later. But we'll move on into, thanks, Cheryl, into this sense of play. And if we need to look at play, we're looking at this participation experience. And the kids, unfortunately, are telling us sport isn't fun anymore. I'm not sure if you've heard that that's what they're saying, but and it's not just Australia, it's not just football, it's around the world. Kids are saying sport is not fun anymore. It's the number one reason why kids are dropping out by the age of 13. This is worldwide, guys. And I've got Sean Douglas from FFA did a wonderful presentation on rethinking grassroots. And he put a few reasons why it's not just with sport too. We're obviously getting more inactive with kids. Where unfortunately Australia's winning at being one of the most inactive countries for teenagers. And this is a real worry, guys. And, so if we look at why isn't it fun then? And it's not the game that's not fun, is it? We all love playing the game and the kids love the game. So what is it? Well, unfortunately, it's us adults, isn't it? It's us that are leading, whether it's coaches, parents, administrators. The experience that we're giving them obviously is not fun. But then we've got to ask them, well, what makes it fun, guys? And do we ask kids enough? I don't think so. Do we ask our players enough as coaches? What do you guys think? And so there's a lot of research now into what the kids are actually saying, what makes it fun. I mean, it's not just a muck around for them. Fun is serious business. It's serious play to these kids. And we can go through, and I've just got on the left there, the kids are telling us 65% participate in sport to be with friends. That's the social aspect. Are we missing that when we go straight away to into performance? 71% couldn't care if a score wasn't kept. We get obsessed with score lines. I'm now saying let's use the score line to enhance the experience, not let it be all about the score line. 37% wish the parents weren't watching them play. And I guess if we look at that photo on the right, or the little cartoon, that's what's happening, isn't it? That parents are, sorry, I'm going to have to be on the move here a little bit. Parents, that's what they're doing on the sideline, and as coaches as well. We're yelling at them, and unfortunately, it's influencing the kids more than the actual game. So we start distracting them when we're starting to yell at them and tell them what to do. So we need to be careful, guys, of this. And let's, if we can have that little video in the middle, Cheryl, of a bit of an insight into more.
Okay, line up.
Hey, you two boys.
Come on, other side, yours.
Yep.
Quickly, you know where you are.
Everyone happy?
Was it too many practices a week? Or being written off too early? Or specialising in one sport too soon? Was it believing you have to be in the top team? Or being expected to play like professionals? We're losing kids from sport, but you can change that. Keep up with the play to keep kids in sport.
Thanks for that, Cheryl. So yeah, at this point, guys, I'm wondering, we head back.
Sorry, guys.
All good. We don't want them to play video games. We don't want them to, oh no, video games are okay, aren't they? But again, it's that sense of kids are turning to that now. Isn't that interesting? They're turning to video games now. But I think, yeah, thanks, Cheryl. If we can go back to the presentation, there's, perhaps I've already put a lot out there, and I'm wondering if I can bring in Maddie and Julie at this point to do we still have the presentation up? Or
Yeah, coming back. Give me one tick, guys.
Oh, good. Yeah, I wanted, Maddie, if you wanted to kick off with some thoughts just around, the problems that we're seeing now in relation to play and how it ties into fun.
Yeah, I think you also nailed it with your own story there, where you gave this sense of identity that was almost inescapable. And one of the defining characteristics of play is that you can quit at any time. So there's this burden that we're putting on that's so unnecessary, that it's an inescapable situation that you're in. And as you mentioned, you were going to allude to in your presentation, this difference between like someone like Lionel Messi when he plays for Barcelona or he plays for Argentina, and there's some debate around what changes, and some of it might be that sense of expectation, and if you're put into an inescapable position compared to an escapable position, it really changes your mental state, your mental focus, your motivation. And for that reason, I think when kids are not allowed to play, it's really comparable to an inescapable position. They can perform, but they'll have a mood and a motivation and a reaction that is akin to depression. Even though they're playing, they can be having a sense of depression. And I'm sure a few of the audience would know players that are, for all purposes, seen as successful, yet their mood, and you see that with some elite players, unfortunately. And it does come down to what play could mean to us as a community, for sure.
Thanks, Maddie. Anything jump out at you there, Julie?
Well, I'm going to cut back. Ken had a question for us that he wanted to come back and for you to harp on in your days as a pro. Do you remember reflecting on play? Like, how did that sit for you when you reflect back on how you were playing?
Yeah, I really didn't understand this sense of play. I remember even as a kid, you know, I got sent home these home training programs, and I felt really bad that I didn't do them. You know, it was like put down how many juggles you did and do this amount of running, and I felt really bad for not doing it. But I actually, that's where I did spend a lot of time in the backyard with my brother and playing. And so now I actually go, well, that's really good that I didn't do I'm glad I didn't do the home training program, because it would have been nothing better that I could have done than playing games against my older brother in the backyard. So it wasn't really much of a narrative around play when I was playing. As a professional, I mean, I always would have said to you, yeah, I'm always playing. And obviously when you get on that field, it was something that I loved doing. And I loved that sense of competing. I really did. But just in hindsight, I see now, and being so different now and actually embracing the experience, I feel like just a lot's lifted off my shoulders now. I don't have that stress of performing. What if I have a bad game? I would be horribly hard on myself. And I just found it really difficult actually to articulate what was going on for me. That's why it's been a really important process of reflection after my career. I wish I could have done it in it. But it was all about performance, and everything was geared to training, that performance, that sense of getting better as a person. You know, anything social, it was seen as, oh, that's just something you do for fun, or that you of course you have friends in the game, but really it's about winning. So I'm not sure if that answers your question, but this is where I'm just so I feel like the light bulb has come on for me in terms of play. Play is sitting right in front of us. We're players, but yet do we know what play actually means? And perhaps we take it for granted. So perhaps if I can move on here to the lost art of play, and that's where I feel like, we're at, or, I want to ask, where are you at? And it's often wrapped around this belief around is play really learning? Because like I said, this analogy of the school, the example of school, really, you do your learning in the classroom, then you go out to play and have a relief from learning. Well, I want to challenge us that actually there's a lot of learning in play. You learn about yourself, you learn about, your own capabilities, you gain confidence in play, because then you start having to relate to others, whether it's through a game or whether it's just play. You've got to negotiate your own needs with others. And then you start exploring the world around you. So what does it mean to play a game of football? What does it mean to climb a tree? What does it mean, for anything you can think of? This is where learning is actually at the heart of play, but we don't often value it as such. And so if we can move on, the definition of play is that it's self-directed. And I really encourage you, if play is starting to be something that you're taking interest in, go to Dr. Peter Gray. I call him the professor of play. Just wonderful articulation. Again, he gives us a history of play and where it's at with the industrial revolutions right back in the day. But one of the definitions he says is that it's self-directed. And like Maddie said, it's having that choice to quit. But, that's not seen as a good thing in sport. Oh, don't quit. And so, there are times when we, and there are times when we can say, come on, let's push through a little bit here. Let's push through. But often that's the first place we go to. Don't quit. As opposed to saying, well, okay, you don't want to play today. You're not having a good day. Okay, that's okay. So the self-directed without any kind of adult or telling them what to do, even time pressures. Oh, you know, come on guys, you've only got 20 minutes here. This is an important part of play. And so then we start looking at, are we playing or performing? And as Maddie said, I love the example of Messi. Hopefully you can read the text there. He says, I have fun like a child in the street. When the day comes when I'm not enjoying it, I will leave football. And I'm wondering, you know, he certainly looks like he's playing for Barcelona, but in terms of for Argentina, perhaps that's why he retired, because he wasn't enjoying it anymore. He's too much of the pressure, too much on his shoulders, too much performance aspect that he was thinking about, oh, we have to win, as opposed to the process of just enjoying the game, staying in that moment, and doing his wonderful thing that he does. I've got the picture of our own Sammy Kerr as well. And I love that picture because for me, it's just like, you know, she's mischievous. And that, again, is wrapped around in fun. She'll always tell us that she just wants to go out and have fun. And I love that about Sammy. But I also want to say this, you know, our beloved Matildas, are they playing or are they performing? Again, I don't want to say either or, but just to distinguish for a second, this sense of play, I feel like because the Matildas, I often comment that I just want to see them play with freedom. You know, they're given so much instruction, stand here, you know, we want to play like this. You know, well, where's that sense of playing together? And that's what I love seeing, you know, even Caitlin Ford and Sam Kerr playing together. They're playing together, you know, and that final third where there is that freedom that they've said, they're playing as opposed to this performance mindset, if you can care to grasp of the difference. Another interesting example there is Megan Rapinoe. And, you know, that pose says it all for me. She performs, doesn't she? But she's having fun. So there's that sense of you can perform and have fun or perform and still be playing. So again, perhaps there's that mergence of the play and perform. I think she's a wonderful example of how it just looks fun for her. She's absolutely smashing it, you know, but she loves the sense of performance. But for me, she's playing. So, yeah, did you guys have some comments around that? Again, that lost art of play, the sense of play and performing.
Joe, we've got a question from one teammate, former Matilda of yours, Sarah Walsh. Sarah, do you want to come online and ask your question to Joey? I think you're unmuted. I think you're good.
Hi, Joey. Hi, everyone.
Hey, champion.
How are you?
I'm good.
I'm just driving. I'm driving. This is a little bit dangerous.
Bless you.
Sorry. Loving the presentation. We're developing I guess, new school programs at the moment, and Sport Australia have developed a physical literacy framework. And I was just wondering what your views are on that. Basically, I'm not sure that you're across it, so I don't mean to put you on the spot, but we're going to be shifting our football sessions to deliver physical, psychological, social and cognitive health rather than just, you know, football sessions. I'm not sure if you're across it, but I was just wondering what your views are on that in relation to children playing.
Yes, no, I'm a little bit across that, not the latest of what's come out, Walshy, but definitely, you know, I promote that sense of the multi-sport, diverse, and I'll actually go into that a bit later as well, the value of that sense of multi-sport, multi-play. I think that's great. The less early specialisation that we can have, the better. We really want our kids to experience a full spectrum of movement. I call it movement variability. So again, there's that sense of doing things different, exploring different movements. With the thing that still grates with me a little bit with the physical literacy is that how we actually deliver it. Is it going to be, okay, kids, run through the ladders. Okay, you've got to do this now. Again, that takes away that sense of play. is that, oh, we've got to do this now. And, you know, when are we just going to play a game? So perhaps if it's then actually put into a game, such as, you know, and there's lots of, that's why I say multi-sport, you know, play all these different sports, which will cover that variation of movements. Whether you're playing a chases game, that's awesome. Whether you're playing even a bit of wrestling that we don't often see because of the risk factor is all really important. Maddie, I know that you're across that some more as well. Did you want to input there?
Yeah, I think just the first point that jumps out quickly is that, as you mentioned, we want to give them this broad exposure, so this physical literacy. But if we don't do it in the right attitude, so if they're not playing, they won't learn it. You know, they might be exposed to it. We might show it to them, but they won't integrate it themselves. They really have to find it themselves, and we can only do that through play. So if we show them how to do something, it's not the same as they learn how to do it. But definitely designing and defining the session and objective is really important, and that's in the right direction. But again, it's how it's done. Is it done in a playful way or a performance way? That distinction's again so important. Are they playing or not?
Yeah. Thank you, brother.
Cool. Thank you.
Yeah. Drive safe.
Thanks.
We had one more, Joey. I had from Heather McGiddy. Heather, do you want to unmute yourself and ask your question to Joey?
Thank you. I found the unmute button, so that was successful. I was reflecting on how important play is as part of the learning process. And I think play for the sake of play is wonderful. It's joyous. But I'm wondering if there's a relationship or a step that we haven't talked about yet. Do we need to reflect on what we've learnt through play in order to enrich the development of skills and understanding?
Thank you, Heather. That's great. I would say, yes, you're right. Yeah, that sense of reflection is very important. To give a bit of a different spin, I would say that articulating and trying to get that cognitive understanding, I feel like is a little bit overrated, to be honest, in terms of, you know, we, and even as adults, we like to articulate things. We like to pull it apart in our, you know, verbal communication. But the fact that play is actually more of a behavior, and it's that almost non-verbal communication that is really important. And often, you know, when a kid has come up with something creative, I still get this, I still love to ask the kids, oh, how did you do that? So it might be just this, sorry, I've got in my head this kid doing, the ball comes over from across and he does a little flick behind his legs. It was like a back heel almost, flick behind his legs into the goal. And you're like, oh my goodness, that was amazing. And then when asking him afterwards, how did you do that? Like, and he's just like, I don't know, I just did it. And so it's like, I think we can get wrapped up in trying to articulate and getting them to cognitively understand it. But if we can actually value more the behavior and actually understand that it's just, that's the behavior that's emerging because of the environment they're in. I think there's perhaps later on, we can dive a bit deeper into, you know, teenage years when we can start actually valuing a bit more articulation. But to me, I feel like we, again, are perhaps overvaluing that sense of verbal. Okay, now we've got to talk about what we just did. Now it's actually the value is in the experience. But again, it's important that we can ask questions in the experience. Oh, you know, how did you feel when you did that? Or, you know, so that sense of questioning perhaps is where it fits, Heather. If anyone else wanted to add to that. Maddie.
Julie, I just wanted to say, I think some of the key parts here are that the kids, they'll do things instinctively, which is awesome. And the balance to find is trying, as you're trying to tease out there, the balance is trying to find that they understand where their instinct is kicked in so that they can recognize wider opportunities to use that creativity that they've had. The other key things that we talked about is that, and Rocky's made a comment to everybody online, he says that play removes the accountability. to people. There's nobody's, there's less judgment when you're in that informal environment. And that's what contributes to our creativity. And we're kind of talking about, especially within the, not so much in the Matildas, we definitely talk about it within the Socceroos about who's our creative in the group at the moment. Where are we getting all of this? Where's our Messi? Where's our Zidane? Where's our all of these historical good players? And some of that just comes because we became very automated about how we were very, you must learn this, you must learn these principles of play, you must learn these positions, that we're taking away that real creative piece out of it. So we're trying to rebalance that with a lot of what we do when we're doing coach education, of let the kids and encourage them to take control of their learning as well.
Cool. We might, there's some good chats going on. Please continue the chats, guys, the chat box. I'll just keep going because it might answer some questions as well through the presentation. But if we move on, I wanted to also explore this value that I don't think we're paying enough attention to, is the value of risky play. And if you can see the pictures, I'm wondering first off how they actually make you feel. Actually, Louis McCall's on this call, and I've pinched her photo of her daughter on the right there while she was climbing. And Louis, I hope I can unless she wanted to jump on and comment about it, I was going to comment. But she was sensing that, I wanted to tell my daughter, be careful. And on the left there, there's boys climbing this waterfall. Thanks, Louis. Climbing this waterfall, and it's like, do you get that sense of anxiety, like, be careful, they're going to fall, they're going to hurt themselves, and so and especially life today with all the people suing, and we've got to look after risk assessments, and but have we actually gone too far? I feel like we've gone too far in pushing risky play out, that we're missing out on a lot of benefits. So again, the sense of play, you learn about yourself. You're learning about your own capabilities. Those boys on the left there, they start off down the bottom, and that guy up the top, he's obviously very, very confident in what he's capable of doing. And so, I feel like, do we actually trust our kids enough to know their own capabilities? We want to tell them what they can and can't do, but we can also trust that perhaps that boy at the beginning of the waterfall there, he might look up and go, whoa, this is too much for me, and actually go, I'm out, this is too much. So I feel like we need to trust the kids a bit more, and they could perhaps be seen on the left, on the boys on the left. Are they learning, or are they just being naughty? So often, I know when kids are climbing trees, it's like, no, you're not allowed to climb the tree. And it's like, the naughty kids will still try and climb it. But again, it's around that sense of creativity, and I'm glad you brought it up, Jules, because, it's that sense of doing something a little bit different, or they understand that they're confident. I'm confident enough to be able to do this. And I know that's what I was kind of like as a player as well. If the coach said, don't kick the ball with the outside of the foot, I made sure I scored plenty of goals with the outside of my foot. So I was like, yeah, I can do that, which can be a bit mischievous. But really, I feel like there's this element that we're missing, and of course we still want it to have a sense of play, of safety. I'm not saying, open slather, but we need to be able to start trusting, and then our kids or our players start trusting us for us to know, what are your capabilities? I trust you that you can go and do something, that you can climb that tree, because you'll know. And then they start finding out a bit about risk and how to manage themselves, and they start learning about the world around us. So risky play there, I feel like there's a lot in that if we can, research more and start letting that in more, we'll find a lot more benefits. And that goes into risk-taking in football, doesn't it? Like you said, Jules, do we have these players that are taking risks? No, because they're too scared we'll make a mistake because someone's going to pull them up on it. Or because we're going to lose a game. Yeah, keep possession. You're going to get mistake for doing it wrong. So there's a lot of fear that then comes in, and we're taking away that trust from players. what's the next? Sorry, my screen
Video.
is covering that. Oh, the video. Yes. Okay, this is a little bit of an insight into some GPL chaos, I call it. And this might bring a little bit into the risky play. How do you guys feel when you see this? This is GPL futsal.
It's multi-ball futsal with 2 balls. It's the best game. Woo!
So I'm wondering, a few of you are laughing. I'm wondering how you feel when you see that and go, oh, Joey, that's just a big muck around. What are you doing? For me, that is the gold of learning through play, that it does get chaotic. That's my favourite game is multi-ball at the moment. So actually playing football with 2 balls, and it does become somewhat out of control. But again, as coaches, that gets very confronting that we're not in control. We can't see every little play that happens to be able to comment on it. That's actually why I have the music as well, so that there's less instruction and more play, less verbal and more of being able to see the behaviours emerge. I'm not sure if how you guys would you be uncomfortable by doing that? Would you see value in that? Do you want to move on, or is there any more comments?
Just around the chaos, Joe, I think it's really important, especially with coaches working with community kids, that parents on the sideline often have this unreasonable expectation that training looks like what they see on television, you know, the news clips and stuff like that for kids, where you see really practiced rondos, all of that sort of stuff going on. The crazy thing is that the game on the weekend is unstructured. It's crazy. It's chaotic. It does things that you can't have trained for, you can't have played for, all of that sort of thing. And trying to replicate in as much of what I do with my coaching in particular, especially with my goalkeepers, because what happens in front of goals, there's no patterns to, is a really big one. So trying to be willing to accept some chaos in your system. It doesn't look pretty, but geez, your kids are learning.
Thanks, Julian. This is where I get a little bit, it can be a little bit misleading when we start seeing kids, you know, whether it's 9 or 10 years old and they play a game and they're very structured, you know, they're playing, they're in their positions. You know, is that what we want to be actually encouraging our kids to do? And you get that sense of, well, there's a lot of coaching input there as to where to stand, how to play the ball around and pass it. You know, for me, it's starting to go again beyond that sense of play into performance, losing that sense of you know, risk taking, of creativity, of chaos, which the kids love. It's the kids' world is chaos. And it's almost like it draws you in, and that's what I've loved about the GPL futsal with the family games. The dads start playing, because first off, you know, people come to the GPL and they're like, what is going on here? It's like, it's okay, just come in and play. And when they actually experience for themselves, the parents, then they understand, oh my goodness, yeah, now I know why my kid hounds me all week as to why I want to go to this thing, because it's so much fun. But again, there's so much learning hidden in the fun and through play.
Craig Mitchell's looking to make some comments. Craig, do you want to unmute yourself?
Yeah, thank you very much. Yeah, Craig Mitchell. I'm a PE teacher. I've been a PE teacher now for nearly 30 years. And I guess listening to what's happening here, it's certainly, it's all about what we're doing, especially in our faculty. When it comes to this participation, as teachers, we're wanting to make sure the kids want to come to their next PE lesson. So I'm hearing that everyone here wants the kids to come back and keep playing sport. We need them, and what I say to my prac teachers when they're coming in, and even my faculty, I'm head of faculty, is that we want them to, if you're watching the lesson, we don't want to control it. We want to control it as little as possible. Actually, we want them out there playing. So, if we look at a lesson and we go, discussing about it, reflecting, we say if they've participated, if they're smiling, if they've practiced, and they've got some of the skills you want them to learn, and if they're active, well, then what else do we want? And within that, it's very rare if we've got a sequence of maybe 6 lessons on soccer or 6 lessons on cricket or whatever it is. It's very rare that we'll actually play the proper game till we'll get to maybe the last lesson. And it's constantly all these modified games, similar to what you're saying with the 2-ball soccer. But a lot of these things you can play across a multitude of games, and it's a matter of constantly monitoring and changing it if you see some kids aren't getting involved or some kids aren't practicing, and you can do it so that in a way, especially like in a sharing environment like you have here with discussing with everyone, you can definitely share all your different modifications of games, and it doesn't take long then for coaches to start looking for those sorts of things and implementing them into their training sessions. And they're the kids that want to come back, and when they know that they're getting acknowledged for what they're doing, and that they're actually, a whole lot of them are being included, and you're looking for ways to include them, making sure they're getting that quality feedback and positive reinforcement that anything that they're contributing to that lesson or that training session is being acknowledged. Thanks.
Thanks, Craig.
Thanks so much, Craig. That is so nice to hear. There is a lot of people. It's just really encouraging to hear people that are looking to express this, whether it is in the school context, whether it is in other sport contexts. All these principles still apply, that sense of modifying the game. And that's where let them play is part of the game, play, learn framework. The first being design the game, let them play, watch them learn. So that sense of designing games and designing the environment becomes so important. Like you say, because now we're getting desperate. We need kids to want to play. Otherwise they'll hand in their note and say, I can't do PE today. But what you're doing there is fantastic, Craig, and that's so nice to hear, because I feel like this sense of it's the lost art of play. There is, people that are still aware of it, which is fantastic. I want to magnify this message, which can often be dominated by the performance aspects of sport and physical activity. So thank you. Shall we move on? Thanks, Cheryl. Okay, so now if we can move on to, all right, if play is at its best self-directed, what becomes our role if we look at it in a sporting context as a coach, as an administrator, as a group leader, in an environment, if we want people to be playing, what does our role become then? And this is where, where does coaching fit? Do we just let them do whatever they want? And this is a question I often get. And first off, I actually do want to say, to challenge us, I'll just come out with it. They don't need us. Kids don't need us in some respects, So I think if we can actually say, I'm okay with if they're off and playing and doing their own thing, actually, you know what, that's fantastic. I value self-directed play, that they're choosing to do it themselves, and I don't even need to have any input. They're making up the rules, and that's the beauty of the playground, isn't it? They're making up their own rules. They're doing it. Wow, what a powerful dynamic that is. If we can come from that place, then when we come into our coaching role, then we can say, well, I know that they don't need me as such, but what value can I start to then bring to them? So whether it's, that's why I feel like this sense of moving from coach to facilitator. And some of you have perhaps already see yourself as a facilitator, as a coach, same difference. That's brilliant. But I think from my baggage, from what coaching is, I almost needed a new terminology to phrase what it meant. And I love the term facilitator. It actually means, one of the meanings is it's an unobtrusive guide, and it makes the process of learning easy. So I was like, oh, I love that sense of a facilitator. But actually, if we move to facilitator and we think about what value we might bring, it becomes a really serious, it becomes really serious there. And I've got what seriousness means here. We've got to look at safeguarding, you know, especially in this day and age. We've got to look at the emotional, you know, safety of the kids more than, and obviously physical as well. The sense of the child's rights. So the UN Convention of the Rights of the Child, actually Australia, I was talking to Moira about this, we don't actually have a Bill of Rights. And, you know, for whatever reason, because we already feel like that's part of a human right, but there is a children's rights there, that they have a right to play. They have a right to have input into what, into their sessions or into sport, into their context. Kids have a right, they have a voice, they have a right to be listened to. And I think we need to uphold that as facilitators, this sense of an individual focus in a team setting. And Maddie, perhaps you might go into a bit later too, this sense of collectivism, where we've perhaps lost that sense of individuals. We want to serve the individual needs, but how do we do that in a group context? Well, this is where, if we're a facilitator, there's a lot of different ways that we can add value and ensure that the individual is listened to and valued, the child's rights, and we safeguard them. So we become then on the left there. I love that cartoon because it says facilitator. What facilitator? So again, it's that sense of the unobtrusive guide. And if you're not there, I love the Montessori quote as well. The children are now working as if I did not exist. That sense of they don't need us, but actually we can then still come among them. And there's a sense then of mutuality of learning. We're entering the learning just as much as them. So we become an advocate. We become a protector of play, especially when we see too many performance, aims coming into perhaps squash out play. Okay, let's protect it. These kids are playing. Let's let them play. We can be a model of play as well. So we might join in. I often like to join in, and that sense of parents joining in. There can be real power in being able to model what play looks like to kids, that sense of negotiating with each other. And we need to be a long-term guide as well. So we have kind of that sense of, long-term journey as opposed to short-term results that, again, performance, mindset and context can keep us in. We want answers and solutions now. We want to win now. Whereas, long-term practice, okay, we've got time. This session, if it just ends up being all free play, then, that's cool, because I know that we've got another 10 years to go with them for them to get a bit more, structured or whatever you feel like there. To move on to, or Maddie, did you want to have a comment on the facilitator aspect, or Julie, just that sense of moving from coach to facilitator and our role?
If the initial comment would be just the importance of defining play. Why we would need to do that is whenever we make any type of intervention, there's a risk with that intervention, and we could be definitely sometimes doing more harm than good, regardless of our intention. So again, coming back to, are we defining play sufficiently to justify any intervention we're making as a facilitator? That's, I think, a real important aspect that you're going a long way to advocating for.
Yeah. Did you have a comment as well, Jules?
Yeah, and to back that up, it's a really interesting thing that with the newer programs that come around, so Soccer Mums, for example, that they've been and that's a program in Victoria to engage mums to play. they've been very careful not to use the term coach when they've got people running the sessions. They're using facilitators or trainers. They're trying to stay away from that because they believe the language, even not just with children, with adults and teenagers, and these principles apply right across the age spectrum of football. That coaches, can become quite structured in what they're doing. So with soccer mums, it's just about getting people active. It's not about teaching them the game. It's just getting them active, getting them involved. And so facilitate is a really good term. The other thing when we're doing a lot of stuff is I sit there and I say to a lot of the coaches and the coach education programs is to have a think about making themselves redundant, because on the pitch, they can influence very little. So when people get really attached to this, I have to instruct. Well, you can't get your message across on game day. So let them work it out for themselves. And if we can reframe that to letting the kids and the players work things out for themselves, it brings us back to that position of a facilitator, not so much of an instructor. So it fits in the full cycle of things.
Thanks
Just
so much.
Just to add one more comment, Joey, you can make this distinction between, let's say we're talking about football, it's like, what do you know about football and how do you know it? And as a guide, so you look at this pedagogy of guided discovery. If we're the guide or the facilitator or the deliverer, whatever the term might be, we sort of in that position where we have this, what do we know about football? We know that. How do they know is something that we give them the opportunity. So how do they know what we know, so to speak? If that makes sense. But they have to be able to answer that question. How do they know it? But we can give them, that's where that design and define as coaching becomes so important. But we can't give them the how. That's what we're there to help them achieve.
Yeah, I love that you've mentioned how, the how, because often that's the first thing that is prioritized is, how do you kick the ball, how we're going to play, and that's usually come from that sense of instruction, as opposed to, well, how do you want it, or not even mentioning how to kick the ball. It's just, how are you going to score a goal? We're so, that's where that's probably another conversation about how technique focused we are. Oh, you have to kick the ball like this. And then we start getting into very detailed the how, as opposed to we give them the game, and the how, that's a wonderful quote, the how the players themselves feel with life. That was a wonderful quote too from our friend Mark O'Sullivan. So let's move on again. So of the middle photo there is one I took of a couple of little girls. They were actually the younger sisters of, you can see in the background there's a futsal game going on. And so this sense of environment as well that was set up to be emotionally safe, that it ended up including all the family. So these two girls were just, and I bring, skateboards and different size balls. Again, this sense of movement, variability, exploring all these different affordances, we call them, opportunities for action. They've got the big fit ball there, having a wonderful time on them by themselves. And for me, I was just like, yes, that's what I want a gameplay learn to be, a place where it's not just about the competition game that's happening in the background there, but everyone came with the sense that they were wanting to play, and they can play, and they were invited to play. So everyone in the family was enjoying, and that sense of collaborativeness, just coming together to play as well, which I feel like can get lost in, these performance aims. I wanted to also, if we look at the right there, it's very important, I feel like, as facilitators, to give choice. And that's what I call also this child-centered approach. If people want to say they have a child-centered approach, I would say, well, how much are you actually asking the kids, firstly, what they want to do? But, I feel like if that's a bit too scary for people to just come out and say, okay, what do you guys want to do today? That might be a little bit too scary, a bit of a big scope there as to what all the kids might want to do. if you do nothing else, even just asking the basic choice of, well, do you want to play a big game today or do you want to play small-sided games? That's something that also gives a win-win. So if you think, you know what, I want to play the game, or there might be two different games that you say, oh, I wonder what you might want to do today. They're pretty much bringing out the same outcomes maybe that I'm hoping for, or behaviours. So I'm actually going to ask them, what do you guys want to play, this or this? And then they start to go, I want to play this, I want to play that. And then there's that sense of, okay, well, you guys work it out and get back to me. That's what I used to say. So there was this sense of negotiation. Oh, but can't we, okay, let's play the big game first and then play the small games. Or, you'd see this wonderful sense of collaboration and negotiation between themselves of what they wanted. Whereas I knew that I don't care what they play because I know it's a win-win, whatever they choose. But the point was to actually give them that choice. If you want to look up, autonomy and how that's been perhaps diminished in our society, that sense of ownership. This is my game. And we want to give the game back to these guys because, like I said, they're quitting or want them to turn up. What's the best way to have someone love what they do is to give them that sense of this. Experiments of saying, okay, I'd come to training and say, okay, guys, I'd be like, okay, guys, I'm just going to ask questions today. So, and that sense of, so yeah, we might move on. I'm just aware of time as well. So there's still probably one more slide then that I wanted to add with some more considerations and encourage you guys to explore a bit and experiment with. Oh, diversity. And this is where it comes back to, I really want to encourage people to explore this sense of diversity. I feel like especially it's nice in Women Onside because there's that sense of we want to value diversity in gender, where sporting organisations have traditionally been, perhaps male orientated or particular environments are, one or the other in gender. We see even in our society around age, in school, it's very much you're segregated by year. And that happens in sport as well. You're segregated by your age. You're also segregated by your ability, or for me, it's more experience. How many years you've played. A 6-year-old could have played for a couple of years and he's awesome. And you say, oh, wow, he's talented. But he's actually just played a couple more years than a kid that's just come in as a beginner. But we want to segregate them into same ability. Again, the sense of separating into gender, and I've even got environments and a life balance there. So again, this is this sense around specialisation. And the more that we specialise into one area, we miss out on the value of diversity and what it can bring. And for me, the best example I've got on the left there is, and he usually pops his head in, Tyrese, my son with Down syndrome, and he's got autism as well. He's got a double whammy there. But that's a picture of him having a race against one of the young guys just in futsal. All of a sudden, we explored different environments. We went outside one week, got access to outside courts, and down the middle of these courts was like this running lane that the kids all of a sudden said, oh, I want to race. So again, that freedom to be able to do what they want, they just started doing races. And the guy on the left ended up beating everyone. And then Ty wanted to somehow join in. Bless him, he's in his thongs there. So he got a bit of a disadvantage. But he had a great race against this kid. And but for me, it's that sense of not everyone could do a drill, but everyone can play. So again, that for me, that's an advocate of playing games or things like races, is that everyone can do it. And it's a real powerful, it's been very powerful to have Tyrese come. I call him DJ Tyrese. He helps me with the futsal, gets on the microphone. I feel like he adds so much. He's added so much to my life in general. but, you know, to bring, you know, people with special needs or everyone, just anyone, the more difference, the better in an environment, because then we can get value from each other. It's not us doing, it's not me doing Tyrese a favour. You know, Tyrese is doing us a favour of being able to give a different perspective on life. And that's why I want to, you know, I advocate for what I've got is superability. So there is an environment where I bring, you know, Ty and his friends, and we have discos, another sense of play, just dancing and listening to music. We do discos. So they have their own, you know, safe place as well to express themselves, to be by themselves. But then there's also that sense of, you know, Ty loves coming to futsal because he gets to meet up with the kids. So again, there's that mixture of environments. If we can have, say, with gender, with the girls, I'm an advocate for giving them choice. Do you want to have just a girls only? And I feel like that's powerful. Have girls only, but then also let them have a mixed environment, especially up to age under 12, where they don't usually, they don't see a lot of gender differences from research, although, you know, society pushes that on them a fair bit. Again, it's just this sense of choice, and the more that an environment is diverse, the more value we can get out of it. Was there a little video there? Oh, that's right. On the right there. Oh, I've missed out on the games, but make the game fit the child. I think, you know, I want to advocate that play is suitable, obviously, in games and small-sided games. But I don't feel like we need to really go into that at the moment. I wanted to move on to the family-friendly, to have considerations for your environment. Is it family-friendly? And I love this sense of COVID giving us the opportunity. We had to stay at home. And I'm sure about the rest of you, but I love that sense of staying local, and not having to rush out and travel, you know, hours to get to something. You know, stay at home, be as close as possible, that sense of community, neighbourhood, and be flexible for families, so that, you know, there's less commitment that's needed to you know, give them these 40-week programs. Let's just do smaller chunks, so that people don't have to be stressed with the commitment of doing something every week. You've got that choice. And this sense of including parents and mums. Often parents are put off to the side, but that's why I love to bring them in. If they're not playing, at least I talk to them on the sideline while the kids are playing. I say, oh, how's little Johnny going? Oh my goodness, did you just see that goal, mum? You missed it, mum. And so you kind of bring the parents into the experience as well. And I wanted to particularly encourage mums. I think this is a good forum to encourage mums are really good facilitators naturally, you know, and not to say that men aren't either, of course, but just I wanted to just especially encourage the mums. They often don't put their hands up to think, oh no, I couldn't coach, or, you know, I don't know enough about the game or the how-tos in terms of how to play, how to kick. That's fine. All you need to do is be a good organizer of a kids' party, for instance. You guys know how to let the kids play. So encouraging mums as well. And this is where I wanted to show this little clip of an event that I did with Female Football Week at Lochinvar Rovers Club. It was really cool to see the mums playing.
Which goal is better to score it? Oh, here's the ball. Here's the ball. Here it is! Oh, big save! Ha-ha!
Again, it's just a quick clip. I just wanted to get you that sense of, you know, the music's pumping, there's chaos, and I've got the mums in. You know, it was just really nice to see the mums came and they were all dressed, ready to play football, you know, and just to see them grow in confidence that they can play too. And that, for me, they're great natural facilitators. So that was to just give you guys some ideas, especially around diversity, how to perhaps, you know, have a bit of a different take on what we do currently with specialising or segregating, the value of mixed environments. Was there any comments on that? Because we're starting to wrap it up now.
So we had Vicky Linton had a question. It may have been answered by Mark, who put something in a previous tweet that you had in there. But Vicky, do you want to get on and ask anyway for the benefit of the rest of the group as well, that it can actually be a discussion?
Just get on, Vix.
Hey, Joey.
Hey.
Just wanted to ask around, so you talked about, you know, it's really about behaviours. So when coaches, when we're trying to create these environments for play, what are the characteristics of play and what are the behaviours that we should be looking for to evaluate whether we've created the environment for play rather than performance?
Thank you so much, Vix. I hope that but through some of what I've shared, you can get the sense of what it actually feels like. But it might also help to have a look at the definitions of play, which again, it was probably back at one of the first slides that I put was what is play, and to look at, you know, Dr. Peter Gray is a great reference to look at where history of plays come from. He actually gives 5 definitions. So that first one, you're going to test me now. The first one was that it is self-directed and self-chosen. So that sense of if you have an environment where it's okay for a kid to quit and to just sit out and have a break, then yes, okay, this is a good play environment. If I've given choice, then I know that they're in this sense of self-directed somewhat play. They've been given that autonomy. Secondly, it's more about, that's right, he said it was more about the means than the end. So if we're actually more valuing the process rather than an end product, like the score line, like the result, that process, and that might look like I said, the chaos that it looks like. It gets a bit messy sometimes. We might feel a little bit out of control as facilitators. That's a good place to be in.
Hey, JP.
Yeah, you're going to help me out here, mate?
Yeah, that was a fantastic question by Vicky. That was because what are you looking for? You know, how do you know if play is happening? I think that gets at the heart of the matter. And one big piece is, are you seeing role reversals? You know, are you seeing dominant players giving over? You know, like, is it just about winning, or is this sort of transitional element happening? You know, and if you're not seeing that, you know, like, and that speaks to diversity. And you can see some, like I've seen kids that just won't play with younger kids because they're too dominant, so they can't find play in that experience, where another big one will be able to play in a way that makes it equitable and in that, and for their own benefit, might I add. It's not for the younger one that they do that. It's they create a situation where they can play as well, and that really defines play. So if you have a dominant player and they're not losing, then they're not playing. So are you having this exaggeration of role reversal? So are you seeing, you know, changes in the game, you know, where everyone is sort of, everyone's getting a chance, but it's not for the sake of the weaker person. It's definitely for the individual again. They're doing it for their own sake and to be able to play. But I think that's a great marker of, can you see play happening? Because when you sort of, as a facilitator, you're also policing. You need to police that. And you often see the excess use of force, for example, or skill, or someone just won't be doing that. And you might need to encourage that to happen. But what a fantastic question, because how do you see it happening? And I'd say role reversal is a huge one. Are you seeing that? And what an important element for football as well. You know, that transitional aspect of our game is where all the magic happens, isn't it?
Yeah, I like that too, Maddie, because that sense of play, it's hard to see, other than, like you're saying, we need to be able to know what we're looking at. But also the sense that play is somewhat a state of mind. There was an example of 2 people might be having a kickabout or throwing the ball back and forth. One might be playing and one might not be playing. So it's hard to get a sense of what it is actually for each person. Where are they? Are they all just encompassed and focusing on the end result, on just winning? Or is it that sense, like Maddie's saying, of actually, I want to make this a great game. I want to, you know, I'm going to perhaps go a little bit easier so that I make it a bit more of an even game, because that's, I want to get the full experience of play there. You know, and so it is really important. That's why I feel like this sense of watching them learn as well is part of the game, play, learn framework. Design the game, let them play, watch them learn. Because if, you know, the more that you're instructing or commenting, then the less you get to watch, and just to sit back and actually observe and just say, okay, what does play look like? These kids are really engaged. And so they're obviously enjoying it if they're engaged. So what does that actually look like? And that's where I don't feel like we observe enough as coaches, that we feel like we need to be, you know, proactive, and people watching in and they're expecting us to be telling them, actually, you know, if we can encourage more of just observation as a coach, then I feel like we would understand a bit more about play behaviours. Anybody else? Or Vix, did you have something does that help?
Yep.
Yeah, no, that's great. Thanks, guys. It's just always, sorry, did someone want to?
Yeah, go ahead.
You're good. Go, Vicky.
Okay. Yeah, it's just always, I suppose, as the environments I've been in, it's always continually, how do I assess this? How do I assess what I'm doing, or evaluate, or, you know, when I'm reflecting? And it's really hard, but as you said, like, it is, I have got a feel for what you've said. And I think, just from my own personal experience, as a player and then as a coach, there is a feeling to it. There is a real feel to it. But yeah, I just wanted to ask that, because I think, as you said, it's, as a coach, it's what am I need to look, where am I drawing my eyes? What am I looking for? And I think that's wherever we're coaching, whatever we're doing, that's actually a really important piece.
Yeah, thanks so much.
And just to top that out, we had some good comment from Brendan in the chat as well, that one of the pieces at the back end, as much as it's not real time, is about getting feedback from the kids after. Did they enjoy it? You know, what did they like about it? What didn't they like? And that starts to let you hone in on it, because they're really in the moment with what they're doing, and they're usually pretty brutal in their feedback. So you will get a sense, and they're not thinking about structured learning. So you will get real feedback from them. So that's a good point from Brendan. I've got one question. Ken's been waiting patiently in the background again for a second question. Ken, I'll give you the last one, because we're almost at the end. We are going to run over with the timing for this. So I'm just going to do that, and then we'll see if we've got any others, and we need to start to wrap it up from there, because people have got other commitments. But Ken Wilner, did you want to get online and ask Joey your question?
Yeah, I like that. I love the presentation, Joey. You know, I love your work, what you're doing there. And I just, considering that we are missing kids in action from 13 to 17 years of age. And a lot of the pictures here we're talking about kids. I have my sense, and I don't know if everybody agree here, but my sense is that we are talking about kids up to like 10, 11 years old. But I was being interested also in how we introduce play in the same sense, but then for a little bit of the adolescents and teenagers, because I guess that's when, you know, the skill acquisition age of 12, when everything is about performance and measurements, there is all about what the coaches see and not so much the experience of the kids and the teenagers. So have you any comments on that, please?
Thanks, Ken. That's a wonderful point you bring up. And often people say, oh, it's game, play, learn just for kids. And obviously it's been more well received that it's for kids, because of that sense of play is usually associated to kids. I've wanted to try and extend that it's not just for kids, you know, it's us for adults, it's for performance aims as well. But yeah, it's a good point, because yeah, by the time they're 13, kids are dropping out of sport. It's hard to then perhaps shift into something that's a little bit more identifiable for teenagers. So it would look a little bit different. Again, getting their feedback as to what they would like. There's a wonderful example of in Salisbury Rovers. If you look them up on Twitter, Deb Sayers they're doing some wonderful things. Actually, the teenage boys they're under 15 and 16 now. They've actually come up with their own name for their own team. They take a lot of their own training sessions. They lead a lot themselves. And it's interesting, that age group of 13. So what I'm trying to advocate for is that we bring more of a play-based approach into the kids, so that by the time they get to their teens, they've had a wonderful experience. They're fallen in love with the game so much. They haven't had to be pressured into a lot of and been and scarred by competitions and selections and gradings and all those, adults yelling at them and all of that experience. If we can protect them as much as possible from those adult performance values, then by the time they start hitting that 14 and 15, then we can start saying, okay, now what do you guys want to do? And that's when obviously more of the passion comes into learning a bit deeper. So then we can bring them in more to, okay, designing the games. What does it look like, guys, for our session? And what do you want to work on? And I really enjoyed working with, at this football school, the open girls age group. But it was difficult because they were so used to being told what to do by the coach, that when I started asking them, okay, guys, so what do you feel like we need to improve on? And they'd just be like, well, that's your job. You've got to tell us, don't you? I was like, no, but you guys are out there playing. Like, what are you sensing? Are you connected? Are you, so we can start bringing them more into the discussions around the hows. How are we going to play? How are we going to train? How are you feeling? Again, that more sense of autonomy, giving them their own identity. I think we can go to a whole new level once we hit the teenage. I'm thinking that the street environment is really kind of teen. It's attractive to teens, having that sense of street, playing on the street. So I actually want to introduce some street, 4v4 and 5v5 tournaments for clubs.
Hey, JP.
Yeah.
No, sorry to interrupt. No,
you're right.
Just to address Ken as well, this play, because that environment is a big, obviously we have this huge dropout rate, and for reasons I think obviously related to play, but then we can make this distinction between deliberate practice and deliberate play, and that need to be deliberate. At 13, they are choosing the sport of interest. As you mentioned yourself, you went straight in. Football became your primary, choice. You chose football at that time, but so that's very deliberate. But then are you going to move into deliberate practice at that stage, or do you need to find a trade-off and consider the role of deliberate play and what balance might need to be had? And if we don't allow play to exist in that age group, the deficit of not playing is going to result in dropouts. And again, it comes down to, are we all clear on defining play? Sorry to interrupt you there, JP.
No, that's good. I was finishing up there anyway. If that helped, Ken?
It's great. I think it's a discussion that needs to be had also a lot more in the context of the teenagers and adolescents, because that's a lot of burnout happen in that age.
Yeah. And they do want their own identity. They want to be, they're not a kid anymore. They don't want to be associated as much with the kids. Although, and again, Salisbury Rovers, and I've experimented a bit as well, of having the teenagers actually become facilitators for the kids, and they start actually exploring coaching a bit more at that age, and just how to be, I call them the big brothers or the big sisters of the group. And so they can still join in, and the younger kids absolutely love them. And they get that sense of, I'm the big brother here. So there's still ways to be able to create those mixed environments. But I think also with the mixed, you do want that special opportunity for teenagers to feel like they're having their own identity and they're cool, and it's all very social. I think it's still social, but that sense of competition and drive and motivation is really starting to kick in then as well. So it's an exciting age group that we really need to look at. So thank you for mentioning that. Do we want to wrap it up then, Jules, with the last?
Yeah.
With the last slide.
I'm going to wrap it up there. Yeah, let's move to the next slide. I think you're pretty much done. Cheryl, one more slide.
Thank you. Yeah, this is the one. Oh, no, if you could go back. Yeah, so I just, I'm wondering what's going on for you guys today. I love this quote. Actually, Matthew, this comes from you, son. You introduced this one to me, and on the right-hand side there. And those who were seen dancing were thought to be insane by those who could not hear the music. And I've certainly, not so much now, I think the appreciation of play is becoming more of a narrative, which is really nice to hear, especially in sport, that we've perhaps lost that art of play. But you know, when I show up and you can imagine doing these events where it's chaotic and, you know, I'm very much in the background as opposed to being out there instructing, people are like, what is going on here? This is not learning. This is not player development. This is not coaching. So I'm wondering if you've been able to hear the music today, or if you still think that I'm insane. That's okay as well. That's okay. I've gotten used to being kind of out there a little bit, which I've always been, and perhaps has been why I've achieved a bit because of my creativity. But I'm really hoping that you might have heard the music today and you might appreciate a bit more about what Game Play Learn is and what perhaps its potential is to introduce this as a formal framework or an approach that people can grab a hold of. You can see there's a lot of flexibility in there to be able to add your own, you know, how to do things. But I just did want to say, just to wrap up, you know, if you wanted to find out more about Game Play Learn, I'd love you to be able to subscribe to the website, gameplaylearn.net, and follow me on the socials. Twitter especially is where I've done a lot of my learning, because there's a lot of guys from around the world that are putting their research articles out there about all this sense of, you know, development. So that's where I've actually learned a whole lot is Twitter. Oh, thanks, Ken. I enjoyed the dance. Good on you. Also, if you feel like you're already valuing play, you're like, yeah, Joey, I'm with you. It was really lovely to hear Chris in terms of what you're doing in the PE space. I'd really encourage you to join the Facebook group, GPL Facilitators. That's where I spend a lot of my time being able, I don't have much time to do one-on-one conversations with people as much as I'd love to. But forums like this, where we can get into a group, where we can share ideas. I'd love to hear what your experiences are. And, you know, I can put out some ideas as well. Please join the Facebook group. And then if you would like to collaborate in more of a, perhaps a formal sense, I find that LinkedIn is a really good way in a business sense. If you've got a business that perhaps might be able to synergize with Game Play Learn, LinkedIn is really good for that, to get initial contacts, and also just Facebook Messenger even is really easy. Or of course, please email me at joey@gameplaylearn.net. And other than that, the next slide was thanks for playing, or thanks for dancing, as some people have said. As Abba would sing, thank you for the music. That's awesome. Thank you. Thank you, Moya. So yeah, again, you know, what do you think? Is there light bulb moments for you guys? Please nurture them, if any of them. Please research. Please think of your own journey of play and having fun and getting back to it. Especially as we move on from COVID, there's an opportunity. It's interesting that this was on at this particular time, where in New South Wales anyway, I'm not sure about the rest of Australia, that it's lifting again, isn't it? The restrictions from June 1 and perhaps July is when we get back into sport. Please have a good think and a reflection on what we're then going back to. Are we going back to performance aims and thinking about getting team performances, or are we able to perhaps have a look at this sense of play and encouraging play, and actually not going back to organised sport too quickly, because this sense of people having to stay home means perhaps they need to get out in the backyard and play a bit more. So yeah, those couple of images are nice memories for me. There's Katie Gill giving her a high five when I was playing for the Matildas. Sorry about that. Playing with my daughter some indoor basketball, and then playing. Oh, there was a little guy that he was like a Carson Pickett from Queensland. He's only got the one arm, and he's a magical player. And yeah, there's just so many great things that I'm so grateful for, even post Matildas, but overall just the life journey of play. Really appreciate everyone for joining us today on this journey. Please keep in touch.
Thanks, Joey. There's plenty happening in the chat at the moment. I'm going to let that continue on its own, so we'll go from there. Some fabulous insights today from Joey and Matt on the importance of, play and hidden learning, so to speak. I'd like to take this opportunity to thank both Matt and Joey for agreeing to share their time and share their insights with us today. It's been a pleasure working with you. Cheryl, if we can just bring up the other slides when you got a minute, please. We'd just like to say on behalf of Women Onside, we look forward to working with you and collaborating further in the future. Just wanted to wrap up a couple of things for closing this out. These events don't happen without a lot of support behind the scenes. In doing this, I wanted to thank the FFA member feds and the groups for helping promote this today. Especially want to thank Cheryl Downs for the tech support, also the Women Onside team, Maria, Helen, and Megan for all of the help to getting this done today. I want to thank the audience again for coming, and just in order to make sure we're still on side and heading in the right direction with what we're doing, you'll receive a survey from us in the next day or so with your thoughts about the presentation today, and if you've got ideas on other topics you'd like to hear from us. So if you could please take the time to complete it and ensure we continue supplying relevant content, that would be awesome. If you've enjoyed the presentation today, please consider becoming a member. Membership's $20 a year. It's a small amount. It helps us to continue advocating and developing opportunities, especially for women in all areas in football. Join us on the website there to do that. And Cheryl, the next slide as well, if you can. A quick spiel about our next event. Women Onside are quite proud to present Kari Seitz. Kari, for the first time ever, a leading FIFA referees manager, will talk directly to the Australian refereeing community on the opportunities and challenges for women referees. Kari is the senior manager of referees and was responsible for match officials at the 2019 FIFA World Cup in France. She's going to share her stories of her personal refereeing journey and her insights about refereeing at an international level at World Cups, Olympic Games, and also try and help develop and inspire the next generation of female referees through her new role. So if you're interested in that, hit the website again and register for that. That's it from us today. Again, thanks for coming. Enjoy your time where you're supposed to. Stay safe, stay inside, and we hope to see you all on the pitch as soon as possible. Enjoy your day. Thank you.